This is, to me, one of the critical points in self-reg. If we as adults are not well, we cannot support children that are in our care. And so self-reg has to be offered to everybody in your system, whether it's the secretary, the bus driver, the lunchroom helper, all of the people who come in contact with our students, the parents at home, the grandparents, everybody who's involved in our children's lives, their well-being directly affects the well-being of their children. And so bringing self-reg to our adults is critical. And this continues that it's not just about children and youth. And in fact, in many ways, when we are able to share self-reg with adults, if those adults touch 25 lives a day in their classroom, or 30, or if it's a secondary school educator that's teaching multiple classes and potentially reaching 50 or 60 students during the course of the day, the payoff of having a self-regulated adult is huge. The effect is incredible. So if you've decided that you're not on the continuum, but rather you're going to be on the journey to a self-reg haven, step one is you need to clarify as a system, or as a teacher in a classroom, or as the owner of a business, you have to clarify your mission and determine how self-reg is going to be a large part of that mission. And self-regulation has to be in that mission. If self-reg is just a tack on, you're never going to have a self-reg haven. It has to be foundational in your mission. And you have to believe, and you're committed to the belief that self-regulation is critical to the success of the people with whom you work. The second is to develop your values. The TMC values that we've just gone over need to be the foundation, and your best bet, whether it's you yourself, if you're just looking at your classroom and you're going to be working on just having your classroom as a self-reg haven because you can't at this point get other people on board, it's a bonus for those kids that are in your class. Even if once they step out of the classroom, they're no longer in a haven, within your classroom, they can be a haven. That is that invitation to other people when they see that there's something different happening in that room. Down there in room 104, there's something different happening. The different that's happening is that you're working toward having a haven. So whether you're working individually in a classroom, or whether you're working as a school, or you're working as a school system, you need to go through the TMC values and determine where you stand on these values. And the great thing is that most people are able to really accept the values that have been developed by TMC because they are so much a part of creating a very just society. And that's what so many of us that are here want to see happen. So once you've gone through and you've looked at the values, then you need to prioritize them. You need to look at adding to, if there's things that you need to add, adapting or developing them as appropriate for your location. But it's important that in doing those two things, in determining which values fit for you and speak to you, but also the idea of prioritizing and adding to and adapting, it's really important that the spirit of self-reg and the values that the Merit Center holds, that they're not being watered down, that they're not being lost or translated into something different than what was intended. And I think it's really important that as you're on your self-reg journey, that you revisit the values of self-reg from time to time, just to ensure that your path is still pointed in that direction, that you're still on that path to a self-reg haven. So the values can be that filter or that screen that help you make some decisions around things as you're moving forward. And then you're going to set your strategic directions. Within most organizations, you need to put something on paper that talks about where you're going, what your plan is to get there. And that is important that self-reg be named in that, because if you truly are going to be working toward having a self-reg haven, it's important that those words be listed. But again, because it's invitational, you can't be putting it in there and making it that everyone must practice self-reg, because we know many of us have been on the journey for a long time, and it doesn't just happen overnight. We can't just check off the certain boxes and say we've arrived. We have to make sure that self-reg first is involved in the way we behave, the systems we put in place, and the way we communicate with other people. And we need to be able to call one another on things when we're not behaving in a self-reg manner. And it's important that as many people as possible within our systems truly understand the basic science behind self-reg. The idea of the brain-body stress system and how that they actually have the ability, whether they're 4 or 54 or older than that they are able to manage their own energy and tension using the steps or the practices of self-reg. So it's not really about all the things that you are doing that you can say, well, we're doing this because we're doing self-reg, or that because we want to be a self-reg haven, but rather that you've set up your organizational conditions that support self-reg practices, and in turn, those self-reg practices help everyone to thrive.